Hey guys, I'm your host Quincy, and you're listening to the Social Drop In. Welcome to a space where the noise of the world dims and genuine heart-to-heart conversations take place. It's vital to find a sanctuary, and I'm hoping that this space can be just that for you. It's going to be a breath of fresh air where you can, listen to when you're on your way home from work, or if you're just wanting to take a deep breath from a chaotic day, or just if you're trying to feel less alone. I'm really happy that you're here. Wherever you're coming from, let's dive in. I'm going to be covering the complexities of mental health. I'm going to be diving into the impact of social media and everything I've learned since working in that industry. I'll be kind of exploring relationships, wellness, finance, business, pretty much anything because nothing is off the table here. And before we start getting on to more, I wanted to just kind of say I'm really happy that you're here and I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this podcast. So here we go. We're moving on to the episode. I cannot believe that we're finally here and that you're here, that I'm here, that this is finally happening because I swear it has been years in the making. I have been wanting to start a podcast, no joke, since 2022. And I'm just so happy to finally be doing it. I'm so excited. And I'm just so grateful too because I have a lot of support to get this thing going, and I've been really honestly putting it off for way too long. So, first I'm going to give an introduction to who I am, and then we'll start talking about some other stuff that I'm super excited to talk about. Firstly, my name is Quincy, and a little bit about who I am. I live in Austin, Texas. I own a business called the Social Drop Out. It's a marketing business, social media marketing to be specific. I have 3 dogs. I have a wonderful husband. I have everything I need in this world, and I'm so grateful for that. So to give you a little bit of backstory about who I am, I'm going to start off with sort of like where my whole story began, and that's going to be back when I was like 15, 16, I graduated high school early, and pretty much within 6 months, I straight away moved to Austin and started college. And from there, I went to college on and off. I tried really hard to kind of make it go as long as I could. However, when you live alone at 16, the sediments of life start to settle in. And unfortunately, I had to start working full time just to kind of make ends meet, which is probably a similar story for a lot of people. And, in hindsight, would I have loved to keep going to school and being able to get my degree? Ultimately, yes, but I don't really look back and regret anything, mainly just because here I am, like I've started a business, I support myself full time, and I have everything I could possibly need. So I don't actually have a change in story that I would prefer, but anyways, so from there, I started working more and more into professional nannying. It's something that I did for, almost 10 years now. I really had such a profound experience nannying. I worked with some of the most incredible families, and it actually led me to explore what I do now. When I worked in nannying, I actually got so lucky with one of the families that I work for. It's the family that I honestly always miss and think about. And they were English, so they had like a house in England, and they would go spend like 4 months out of the year there. And while they were gone, they actually paid to retain me and just paid me my full salary. And so it was really lucky for me to have like 4 months off out of the year. That was unlike anything else, so generous. And my biggest passion in life is traveling. It's my favorite thing that I like to do, and I was given the opportunity to have all my bills paid and go and travel. So I was able to go on several trips, and I just think back and I love that experience. Fast forward to when they decided to move, they decided to uphold that same standard even though that they're moving at the beginning of summer, and they paid me for 3 months just after the fact to kind of be able to take my time and find out what I wanted to do. And it turned out that I just really felt that I wasn't going to be able to experience that type of family again, not even just the perks of working for them, but I just grew so close to their family and the kiddos that I worked with. I loved it. But I really decided that I wanted to take working remote very seriously. It's always been a goal of mine to be able to work remote and be able to travel. And I've always wanted to write reviews or create these videos to share different places in the world. I have like this aspiring goal to create a like coffee table book that is made out of like the best dive bars around the world. I swear, wherever I go, I will find a dive bar. I love it. And if you ever come to Austin, Texas, there is like a million trillion that I could take you to. Anyways, so I decided to start taking it seriously, my dream to become a remote worker. And after doing a little bit of research online, I found that there was all of these remote jobs that you can pretty much just make up on your own. And so all right, let's do it. So I just started doing social media marketing, my research actually. I remember I was watching so many different YouTube videos and I finally came across this woman. She was a girl. She's a young woman and she was making videos about social media marketing. And she had just been starting out, but she felt so confident throughout her videos and it really just gave me like such a kind of boost in what I wanted to be. I shot her a message on Instagram and I was like, I really appreciate what you're doing. Like, I found you on YouTube. I think what you're doing is super cool. If you ever like decide to train anybody, like I would really love to work with you. And she messaged me back and it turns out she was New Zealand. She was in New Zealand. She messaged me back and she was like, funny enough, I'm actually starting a coaching course and you can be like one of my first students if you'd like. It was a really cheap program. It was like $300 at the time, which is hilarious because now I know she charges like $2,000 plus for her coaching stuff. So go Ellen, you rock. But so I got to training on social media marketing with her and she taught me everything that I needed to know down to what I needed to know about social media marketing, the contracts, the invoices, the legal aspect of it, how to create pitches, pretty much everything. She was really someone that like helped me jumpstart my entire business. During the pandemic, I had such a fun time basically being able to like be at home and work on this craft. So it was really, really nice for me. I was able to get invited to like House Party, which was that app back in the day where you can like get it. It's like an invite only type situation. And it's all of these sort of like leaders and innovators who were kind of starting these broadcast channels where you can ask questions, listen to them. I mean, at that time, no one really had like anything else going on. So it was really nice. And I was able to get into this space and I could get into some really cool chats. And I ended up getting in there and asking questions like I do. And I ended up catching the attention of somebody I ended up working for years after that. It was really interesting to sort of like learn that way and kind of keep scaling my business. I was able to really, really grow from that. And yeah, so I ended up specifically in the music industry niche. This is something that kind of happened from the start of my career. I started to work with a band local to Austin called Nominee. I worked with them for a lot of time during the pandemic, after the pandemic. Love them. They put out a record and put my name on it just for, I guess, like all the help that I did marketing wise for them. And regardless, I would have done it. But I'm really supportive and happy of that. So anyways, that kind of jump started my niche into the music industry. It always was a goal from the start. That's what I wanted to be in because living in Austin, I've had such like an opportunity to be able to go to as many shows as I could. And I was able to kind of even like from the time of October 2019 to the pandemic, my husband and I think probably went to like 40 shows and we love it. No matter like all big shows, small shows, local shows, whatever it is, like I really have like a strong passion for working in the music industry and just music in general. And I remember back in the day when I would go to shows, my favorite part of going to the concerts was actually looking back at the audience and just seeing how happy it made everybody, and just seeing really how, touched everybody was. And it really just touched me in that way. And I think that's really like what kept me going in the music industry with social media marketing, is just being able to sort of translate bands who really have a hard time. It's funny, bands have such a hard time being able to kind of like translate to their fan like why they should listen to them and things like that, how to connect, and especially during the pandemic. And I think that that's what I could understand, is like I could see these fans and how like touched they are to listen to this music. And so let me help the bands kind of translate back to their audience. So that's where my whole business and organic social media management started. I've been grateful to work with a ton of different agencies that have allowed me to work with like huge brands, huge bands, huge anything really. Anything from like PR to email marketing to ads. I've been able to really get exposed to so much marketing and found that this is really something I'm passionate about, and I wanted to turn into something more. So, my business is called The Social Dropout. My marketing business is The Social Dropout, hence my name here on the podcast, which is The Social Drop In. I really thought it was super clever. I think it's really fun. My logo for my business and for the podcast is the same. One's holding a phone, the other one's holding a podcast mic, so I thought that was pretty cute. Shout out to Matt Thompson for being the best graphic designer. Anyways, so the name actually came to me in my sleep, The Social Dropout. I don't even remember how or why. It was like seriously so crazy. I just remember waking up and being like, that's it. Like, that's my name. I felt so confident in it from the minute I was like, okay, let's run with it. And so, yeah, I started my business 4 years ago. And for the last 2, I've wanted to start this podcast, but I've really, really, really kind of like drug my feet in this. And I don't know why, honestly, because I am so passionate about this, but the Social Drop In seemed like such a fitting name, because not only is this podcast going to be about my own stories in the world, it's really going to also be about other people's stories. And I have ideas for people to kind of drop in. And so I'm super excited to be doing this. And yeah, this is kind of just my small introduction. My goals here are going to be to basically kind of just keep creating content that is really relevant to like my life and hopefully other people's lives. I have so much that I like to talk about, and in the past I feel like I've gotten so much positive feedback about some of the stuff that I post online about being super transparent and open. I feel like I've always been super outspoken about how I feel, what I experience, and sort of like how it makes me feel. We will definitely dive in. We will definitely dive into what I've learned about that. But my goal here is really just to spread the message that you are not alone. There's always going to be somebody in a room that is probably feeling a similar feeling to you. And I remember when I was younger, I used to think, I'm talking like in my prime emo days. I remember my prime emo days that I remember thinking to myself, I can't be the only one in the world that feels this way. I can't. And I remember then that's when like my whole Tumblr era started, and I started to realize everybody was emo. I'm super excited to continue that wave of transparency and be able to really just be a person that people can look to whenever they're having a rough day, or even just kind of like relating to somebody else. I definitely just want that to be here. The last thing that I want to touch on in this is actually something that I was really hard on myself for, but I actually have found sort of another way to kind of think about this. I, for the last 2 years, have wanted to start this podcast. I have notes in my phone of manifestations from back then. I've written about it in so many different like manifestations. I've talked about it to people for years. It's something that I genuinely have been wanting to do. And why did it take me 2 years to get to this moment, to this very first podcast episode, to this very first YouTube video, depending on where you're watching or listening? And why did it take me 2 years to get to where I am right now? I have beat myself up for it so much because it seems so easy for me to like get online and post my feelings, talk about whatever, 3-4 minutes, whatever. But it wasn't even like the time difference because trust me, I could sit here and talk all day long, even if I am just talking to a camera. I think I just found every single excuse to not begin. I'll give you a couple examples of sort of what I mean. When I first started about doing a podcast, I really sat and thought about, okay, what do I want to do? I went from one idea to another idea to where I am now. I realized that I can't really fit myself into a single niche because there's so much that I want to talk about. So then I got okay with that idea. Then I started thinking about, okay, how am I actually going to do this? Like, who's going to listen to me? How can I get my marketing out there? How can I get started? Oh, TikTok's going down. How am I going to market myself? No, that's not what it's about. You can't think about things in that way. You can't think of what ifs or this isn't going to happen. You have to just kind of live in the moment. I was then kind of caught up with the idea, do I want to be a podcast or a vodcast? And if you don't know what the difference is at, one is just like listening to a podcast on like Spotify, or you have like watching a podcast on YouTube and you have video. So I got really caught up on that, and then I was like, okay, I really want to do a vodcast because it's better to cross market that way. Perfect. Then I was like, oh my gosh, where am I going to record? Because I don't have a space for this. So what you see here is honestly like a month of my husband and I creating such an incredible sort of like podcast studio / like music studio. My husband's a musician, and I really created this to be perfect. Then I took even longer to start this. I've lost so much time thinking about that stuff and not starting that it's really sort of like left me out of being able to market my business and reach more people than if I would have just started a year or two ago. So, we live and we learn, but this message, the reason I really take all this detail to explain all this is because if you are wanting to do something, whether it be start your own business, if you want to start culinary school, if you want to start being a rapper, whatever it is, I know that everybody has a skill set. I'm like really sure about that in my heart. And if you really want to kind of grow your dream, if you want to ditch the 9 to 5 and kind of work for yourself, if you want your universe to work for you, you really have to just get started. You really just have to say no more, cut the overthinking, cut the BS, just get started. And I think that's kind of what I want to end this podcast episode on. If there's anything I want you to take away, please, 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 just start. That's the only way that you can move forward. So I'm really glad that I got started. I'm really glad that you're here. And if you've listened this long, I'm really so grateful. You can honestly start catching my videos. I'm going to start posting like once a week, so keep an eye out for that. I would love to try to start posting every Monday. We'll see how that goes. My goal here is going to be with consistency, and I really hope that I can see you again soon. Thanks so much for watching, and adios!